Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt in Studio West for the Salem News Channel, Salem Radio Network, affiliates across the entire United States. All of them waiting eagerly for Hack Madness to conclude and wrap up tomorrow. Comfortably Smug joins us from the Ruthless podcast. Smug, welcome. I know there's quite a market going on. Any tips? I got all my money on Margaret Brennan winning. But I had Houston winning too. So I'm not the best person. When do we find out? When does the episode drop?
Well, first off, thanks so much for having me, Hugh. And we should know any minute now, actually. So the voting is over. I think in the next hour, we should know soon enough. And betting on Margaret Brennan to take this whole thing down is not a bad bet. I don't need to tell you the run that she's been on, whether it was the way she moderated that debate that Vice President had, or the way that she's been week after week handling interviews, whether it was with Secretary Rubio trying to explain to him, or the follow-up interview that she had with Vice President Vance of trying to be like, well, isn't it okay if these violent migrants take a couple buildings? So she's had a record kind of run to get to where she is right now. And I think, it's looking like she's headed towards that win, and it's a well-earned win as Hack of the Year.
I'm always looking ahead, Smug, to next year. So I'm going to keep count of the number of times that the vice president explodes a journalist. And then I'm just going to add that journalist that gets exploded the most times by the vice president is going to be my number one ranking that I'm going to suggest to you. Let's move on to the last episode of the Ruthless podcast. Our favorite cabinet member and yours, Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, ended by saying, "Go north, young man," and he brought in the idea of bringing back the woolly mammoth. So we discussed this last night at dinner about whether we're comfortable with the woolly mammoth coming back, and it was a 4-0 vote no. However, the folks at the Ruthless podcast seemed all into this. Did you not see Jurassic Park growing up?
Well, here's the thing is I think we could actually do it, though. We've learned the lessons from seeing Jurassic Park. Raptors aren't a great idea, but the woolly mammoth, they're not going to be opening doors. They're not jumping out of cages. It's as this, secretary explained, they're essentially just like, fuzzy elephants, right? So I think that's saying that you don't want the woolly mammoth. You're avoiding the possible upside of imagine hunting these things. There's large tracts of land in Texas that would be perfect for having just you hire a guide and you go on a woolly mammoth hunt. It'd be incredible. I'd be the first person to sign up for that.
There are unexplored side effects to this, including the scale of the weapon you'd have to carry. Have you ever seen an elephant gun, Smug?
It'd have to be a mammoth gun now. I mean, an elephant gun might not even cut it.
That's a 2-person operation there. You might need a bazooka. Smug, let's talk about the market today. Obviously, Secretary Bessent turned everything around with one announcement. I would like to think that this was all planned. I don't think it was all planned. I think it's a reaction to circumstances, but it comes down where I'd love to finish. I don't care how the Cavaliers win the NBA title, if they win the NBA title. So if Trump ends up dividing the world into us versus China, I'm all for it. What are your thoughts? You're actually a financial guy.
Yeah, so I mean, I completely agree with you on that. When I was, we've had a lot of time over the past couple of weeks to think about international trade, the way America's economy has shifted fundamentally, how manufacturing jobs have gone overseas. And to me, it seems like it all boils down to all those points of how America has lost out comes down to China's role in this, whether it's them joining the WTO, which to me seems as like the most significant part of the puzzle here in trying to solve for it. So when there were all these tariffs announced for many, many countries, many of whom are partners of the United States, whether it was, with Israel or countries that we have not had an antagonistic relationship with whatsoever. The action that was just taken today, which essentially isolates China, is the right solution. And I'm with you. I don't know if this was planned or not, but I like the end stage of where we are now highlighting completely that the issue here is China. Because there was a danger for a while there. If we're enacting if we're enacting tariffs on every other country, it's almost like enacting sanctions on the United States and their citizens alone. And the lesson in that situation would be for other countries of the world to trade with each other. But what has now become, evident is that China is at the center of this policy. China is the target of this policy, and the market's very positive reaction, I think, says how much anxiety we had of a system where essentially it made the U.S. an enemy of every other country.
I love the end point, if it's the end point. Now, before I go on to the tax bill and the budget bill, Smug, I do want to talk about the Youngstown hate over at the Ruthless podcast. Now, you guys just randomly launched into 4 or 5 body checks on Youngstown, which is adjacent to Warren. It's the Youngstown Warren era. It's the Steel Valley, or the old Steel Valley, or what was the Steel Valley. And of course, you got Ashbrook there. He's a Cincinnati kid. He hates Youngstown, Warren, because we dominate in state football. Where did the Youngstown hatred come from? You all dove in. You all piled onto Youngstown.
So I just saw it as a blanket, kind of like a cheap shot to take at Ohio, because Ashbrook, day in, day out, it could be any subject. He'll find a way to bring Ohio up and say how Ohio's the greatest. If I remember correctly, my context in describing it is that Ohio is yet again poised to have, a kind of manufacturing renaissance. You have companies like Anduril, which just announced that they're opening this manufacturing plant in Ohio, and that the manufacturing jobs are not, the stereotypical, thought of, it's going to be like a industrial revolution, turn of the century kind of a factory job, but with robotics and automation, these are going to be extremely well-paying jobs.
Well, they're going to be up in the Northeast near the water, because we got the water. Cincinnati's not really part of Ohio, so you tell Ashbrook that. Now, also, Burgum told you that all of the AI ought to locate in North Dakota and Montana. And I had Governor Gianforte on yesterday, and we talked about bobcats versus bison, pronounced correctly.
Yeah.
However, you didn't press him on what stranded natural gas meant. He just threw that out. Do you know what stranded natural gas means? Like, are they in a hotel holed up with Bonnie and Clyde?
That's a great question. And I would love to also have Governor Gianforte on our show. You always book the best guests.
Well, it's a lot easier to do radio and television from your hotel room or from any screen than getting to your elaborate security measures. It's like getting into the Ruthless podcast is harder than getting into the EOB. Not quite the White House level. So Smug, I'm going to close with this. When you get around to the yes or no bill on the vote on the budget, are you a bull or a bear on whether the House GOP will shoot itself in the head over the weekend?
I don't think the House GOP is going to shoot itself in the head. I think over the past few months, we've seen Speaker Johnson just, do an excellent job of being able to rally that team together and pull off miracles when they need to be done. I wouldn't count out the House GOP. I think Speaker Johnson's got this in hand.
From your lips to the House GOP Freedom Caucus ears, no grandstanding. Let's get it done. Smug, thank you. I look forward to the Ruthless Podcast Thursday edition so I can find out who won Hack Madness. My money is on Margaret Brennan. We will see. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt.
The Hugh Hewitt Show is now available on TV. Go to salemnewschannel.com or download the app. You can also watch on Roku and Fire Stick. Salem News Channel, the antidote to the mainstream media.